Hey, Emma.
Yes, Madelyn.
What do I usually say to you right when we're about to start the podcast and you ask me, did you think of a joke?
What is it?
What? Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Relatable. Very real. Best comedy is pulled from real life. Observational humor.
Sure.
Just wait, I've got a lot of material about airplane food.
Good.
No, I don't. Who's been on an airplane? You have, but not me. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. I'm your perpetually behind on coming up with my opening material host, Madelyn.
I'm your I don't even have to worry about it host, Emma.
I'm your I just get to make snarky comments about it after the fact.
Yeah, it's good. I gotta do like the improv here, right? You get the preparation.
The irony is that is a joke that I did prepare at least, 15 minutes in advance.
So that's maybe 10 times more time than usual.
Is it possible for that? Usually it's negative time. Usually you're like, okay, let's start. You got a joke? And I'm like, oh, right. I need a joke. Which, you could say that might explain the quality of some of the jokes. But you would be wrong. Because even when I think of jokes several days ahead of time in a moment of inspiration, they aren't better. And you wouldn't know which jokes those were.
Yeah.
Well, folks, you might not have picked up on this from the joke. Because of my bold reinterpretation of the pronunciation.
Uh-huh.
But this week's games we're going to be talking about are Mirror's Edge. You would not have gotten that from the joke.
Yeah.
And Wattam. So it's kind of a funny week.
And it's funny because I think most people's reaction to seeing Wattam is probably, what?
I wonder if it's not clear to me what the title refers to at all.
I don't think that's what it's from.
Wouldn't that be funny if it was, though? What if he came out and he was like, that is how we titled it. But we aren't starting with Wattam. We're starting with this week's old game, Mirror's Edge.
Yeah.
So Mirror's Edge is a future sci-fi parkour action game. Developed by DICE, which mostly makes Battlefront, and published by EA in 2008 for PS3, Xbox 360, and then shortly after in 2009 for Windows. Emma rightly reminded me this morning that we actually own Mirror's Edge, so I was planning for my game this week that I played to be Wattam, and I did play Wattam, and I'll talk about that later in the show. But I also got to play Mirror's Edge, so I've made up for the fact that week that I didn't play any games.
Yeah.
I've got my average back up.
I oh so generously gave you my PS3 and all my PS3 games, which I regret every day.
Really?
Only just a little bit.
I'll mail it back to you.
No, it's fine. You can keep it. It's just whenever there's some old JRPG that I want to play that's been ported to the PS3 but not the PS4. It always just frustrates me a little bit. But I gave it to you. It's yours now. It's fine.
I don't understand that. I don't understand why. Well, I do, because there's no money in it. But how hard is it? How hard is backwards compatibility?
Apparently for the PS3 specifically, it's kind of hard because of the way it's made.
Why did they do that?
I don't know the specifics for it, but I know that, the PS3 is super, they can't really figure out how to emulate it. So I imagine that causes difficulties, but there really shouldn't be much problem with the PS1 and PS2.
Alas.
But they can re-release stuff, and that makes them more money.
Money. Yeah. For a limited time.
Yeah. That's Nintendo, so...
Don't I know it?
Nintendo, if the backwards compatibility, I understand what the issue is.
Anyway, Mirror's Edge, if, by the way, you're interested in playing it, it is currently on sale on PC for $5 on Steam. I don't know what it runs on PS3 right now because I apparently owned it and didn't realize it. But it is on sale on PC, not Mac.
They did also make, I think for PlayStation 4, I don't actually know where Catalyst came out, but they made a game called Mirror's Edge Catalyst a couple years later that's like a rewrite of Mirror's Edge, sort of.
Yeah, it's a reimagining.
Yeah.
A reboot that did not boot to anything. Am I wrong that you played Mirror's Edge Catalyst? Or is there some other game? What is the game where you like, oh, it's Gravity Rush. That's what I was thinking of.
I guess that does have some similarities. But I played a bit of Mirror's Edge on the PlayStation 3 when it came out. I have not played
because you had a save file. You did not make it very far.
Really? Not very far? I think I made it past, I think it was on, maybe the 3rd or 4th level.
Right, so it would feel that way, but it was actually called Chapter 1.
Oh, really?
I made it as far as you had made it this morning.
But it is, different locations, right?
Yeah, so there's the training level, and then there's a prologue level, and then there's level 1. And it seemed like that was as far as you had made it.
I met her, did you meet her sister?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's what I remember.
So we played the exact same amount of Mirror's Edge.
Yeah. I think I just kept getting shot in that level. And
anyway, other than telling you this is a sci-fi parkour action game, which, to be honest, does give you a pretty good idea of what this game is about.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you to the world of Mirror's Edge. Not getting too into the lore corner, because at the time I was like, oh, maybe I'll play it. So you play as Faith Connors, and you're a runner in this, sort of, future Tokyo sort of thing. It's not really Tokyo, but, it's future Tokyo, probably. And in this city, we've got this kind of totalitarian surveillance state going on. When I was in an elevator for part of the game, they were trying to tamp down concerns about avian flu, and also concerns about recent uprisings.
Oh.
So I was like, oof. Oof. Oof to that. But you're in this world, runners are the folks that carry kind of illicit materials and information around the city, by doing some dope freaking parkour all over the place. So the major gameplay element of Mirror's Edge is running and wall jumping and wall running and jumping, and climbing on things all around this kind of futuristic, boldly designed primary color of a city. And there's also combat, which sucks.
It does. That's where I remember kind of getting stuck on Mirror's Edge, is that I really just struggled with the combat elements of it. And it just, is so tedious to have to go back and die to the same person again.
It absolutely is. Mirror's Edge already, in my, hour and change playing it, I definitely was already feeling the fatigue of, God, don't make me go back and do this again. It's a game that's played entirely from first-person perspective, which means you get a really awkward first-person hug with your sister pretty much right away. Not that I haven't been on the receiving end of awkward first-person hugs from my sister before. I mean, who hasn't? Am I right? But in this one, it's you kind of go and you can kind of see her shoulder, and it's pretty weird.
Well, I guess that's how a hug works, right?
It is. It just felt weird.
Okay.
You aren't doing the hug. You're just it's like you're watching the perspective of what you see when you're in a hug, but when you're in a hug, you're not focusing on what you see. Anyway, the first person is definitely, it's a really bold design choice. It is a bold design choice that makes me bad at the game, but it's one that really adds to the element of running around, and for me anyway, panic at all given times.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one element of this game that really makes it stand out and makes it really distinctive, because you definitely could have made this as a third-person game where you could kind of more see what was around you and where you were going, and I think in many ways that would have stepped on the spirit of this game. Because when it's working, when you're doing a good job, it feels really good.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see where you're going next, and you're flying through the air, and you're successfully climbing the things and grabbing the things that you're supposed to be climbing and grabbing. It's a really, really cool game. And, you know, I've seen a lot of kind of apologist reviews for it that are like, the combat is supposed to be terrible. Like, of course, DICE knows how to make a first-person combat game.
I mean, I understand wanting Faith to not feel super strong, right? Because that's, like, she's not a fighter, right?
Yeah.
But then, like, I feel like it would have been a better design choice to, like, just make it like, oh, you ran into somebody, you're dead, instead of, like, making it like a combat thing, you know?
Yeah, so you do have the ability to punch and grab guns and shoot guns that you've grabbed in this game when you're encountering soldiers. I will say, for me, so the game kind of opens with you've recovered from an injury, it seems like, maybe, and so you're back kind of getting into runner world again. Ironically, I did skip my morning run to play this game. So
same thing, you know?
It pretty much was. I was like, I'm going for a run right now. I'm working up a sweat.
Madelyn always jumps up on walls and zip lines across
I
New
do.
York
People think it's weird here, but it's a good workout. So, and you don't see any social distance to the extreme.
Exactly.
Except the parts where I'm like running through, breaking into doors and breaking glass windows.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
It's fine.
So the first mission of the game, first you have like this tutorial thing where you kind of learn what to do. Then the first real mission of the game is your sister, who you learn is a cop or a detective, investigator, something. She's somehow affiliated with law enforcement. There's some kind of incident that's going down at the building where you know that she is. And so you swing out to figure out if she's okay. And once you've, jumped across all the rooftops and over the electric fences and plummeted to your death, if you're me, like half a dozen times, maybe more, you get into this building and you find your sister, and she's in there with this guy who's running for mayor, but he's also dead. He's no longer running for mayor because he's dead, but he was running for mayor. And your sister's like, I came here to meet with him because he's like your dad's friend from 10 years ago or something, because he wanted to meet with me and he was asking about you, and then I blacked out and I came to and he'd been shot with my gun. And all of this happens in the first 45 minutes of the game, so this is just the setup. It's not a spoiler. And so you're like, okay, come with me, I'll hide you. And she's like, I don't do that. I don't run from things. And it's like, dang. How many times have you used that one, sis? But okay. So you try to get away, and you're immediately chased by all these heavy-armed SWAT troopers. And for me, that was too soon for me to have aggressively pursuing soldiers, as I tried desperately to figure out what controls did what.
Yeah.
On PS3, pretty much all of the controls, most of the parkour controls anyway, are mapped to the triggers.
Yeah.
I don't know why I have a much harder time remembering what trigger does what than, what button does what.
I saw someone describe them as one is up movement and one is down movement, which
That's correct.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to me about L2 and L1 that makes me inherently think, up and down. So that was a trouble sometimes for me, in that I would crouch when I meant to jump.
Yeah.
Which is fully my own, I'm bad at this, so this is not really the game's fault. But for me, it was too soon for me to be running around an indoor environment that I was not familiar with SWAT troopers on my back.
So what I remember is getting to this one part, and, if you're going fast enough, you cannot get hit, I think is how it works. So you want to be building up momentum to go. But I feel like I remember, getting shot in this one place, and then the checkpoint would set me back before I could build up enough momentum to get impervious to bullets, and so I would just continue to get shot in that one place. So that's what I remember putting it down.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
For me, I spent about 15 minutes replaying the same and again, this is just me revealing that I'm bad at games, right? Like, I recognize this, and I'm just displaying it for everyone. But I thought I had figured out the clever trick of how to get out of this building, this murder scene, which was eventually, like, you ran through the accounting department, and your guy, Mercury, who's like your guy in your ear, is like, there should be an exit through the accounting department. And you went by an elevator, which you've taken an elevator up before. And I was like, okay, the elevator. So at first I would try to smash the buttons on the elevator for a while. That didn't work. So I was like, okay, I'll keep running. And then I realized the reason you can't use the elevator at first is because there are soldiers coming up the elevator. So I was like, here's what I'll do. I'll wait right above the window that I can break through until the soldiers have left the elevator, and then I'll jump through and I'll take the elevator down and it'll be great. And that is not how it works. I just got murdered in the elevator a few times before I was like, maybe I ought to look up. And then I did find my way out.
Oh, dear.
But for a while I thought I was going to get stuck right there in, like, the first real mission. And I was like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the key is both of us have pretty bad reaction time in games.
Sure.
I think having thought about it, I think that's why I'm bad at certain games, is because I do not have very good reaction time. And all of Mirror's Edge is dependent on you being able to look at your environment and figure out what you're supposed to do. Which is supposed to be somewhat helped for people like us by the runner's vision that marks things where you're supposed to go with red.
Runner's vision for me.
I did actually read an essay that's like, it feels sort of against the spirit of parkour to have this runner's vision, because the idea is that in parkour you're looking at the way a city is designed and actively defying that design to make your own sort of creative and playful movement through the city. And so having runner's vision that's like, do this, can be a little bit against the spirit. But in that, it still allows you to do a whole bunch of different things outside of what runner's vision tells you to do, like improvising off of that. It's just not as clear to be able to do that. And watching speedruns is sure something.
I'm sure. It eventually, so you can unlock kind of like speed trial modes for each chapter once you've finished them. Which I can imagine, like, this would be a cool game to watch speedruns of, because it would feel like watching somebody do parkour. And a big props to the first-person perspective. Like, again, when I was running over and over again from these security guards in the accounting department, I was, like, looking around like it was me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it really did ramp up the investment and the stakes really right away in a way that it wouldn't have if it was like third person and I could really see my environment.
Oh yeah, I think there would be a lot less to talk about when it comes to this game if it was third person.
I agree. Especially given its, release date in 2008. And part of the reason that this is like a cult classic as opposed to like a classic game is that it takes that first-person shooter mechanic, and I think a lot of people came to this game expecting something more in that vein, and did not get it.
Yeah.
Because like we said, the combat is not great. Also, you are not a bullet sponge. You do die pretty quickly upon getting shot.
Yeah. Which,
again, good, cool. Maybe more games should be like that. On the other hand, I got shot a lot.
I mean, I think it's definitely a game that goes outside the norm of other games, which I always think is good, right? Like, thinking about control a little bit is something that I think of, like, borrows some mechanics from a lot of AAA games, but then makes it its own thing, right? But always when that happens, like the first time that happens, it's always going to be a little bit messy, right? Because you're figuring stuff out. I know that in Catalyst, there's still people shooting at you, but there's no more, like, stealing gun mechanics, so it's a little bit more tailored towards running away than having to deal with combat sometimes.
So Catalyst, by the way, as Emma said, is the Mirror's Edge sort of reboot-ish.
Yeah.
That came out in 2016, so pretty recently, and was pretty uniformly described as disappointing.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting what you said about kind of going against the spirit of parkour by having this runner vision, in that what was frustrating for many people about the 2016 one is that the open world structure of it, while like kind of cool in its own way, also like just made it feel sort of formless in a way that the more directed goals of the original did not.
Sure. I mean, I feel like also that might have to do, I think I remember like just the open world's kind of empty. Right? So like there's not very much to do either.
That's very 2016, isn't it?
You know, maybe I did play some of Catalyst, but I don't, because I feel like I remember doing like side missions. But I don't know when I would have played it. Whatever.
What I was thinking of was definitely Gravity Rush, so maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. Gravity Rush is very much not really like Mirror's Edge, by the way. In case you're like, ooh, I like Mirror's Edge. Let me look up Gravity Rush. Like, maybe you'll like it. You might like it still, but it is different.
I was just thinking of, the mechanic of, like, how you get around the world is kind of funky.
Yeah.
That's what my brain was doing.
Catalyst, I believe, is also not entirely in first person. I think there are cutscenes that are third person.
Right. I saw that, too.
Yeah. Which feels more sort of typical in a way than letting you deal with like the awkwardness of watching someone do a hug.
Yes. All that being said, you know, like Emma mentioned, when Mirror's Edge is doing what it does well, it's cool. It's really cool, and it's cool in a way that, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, it has enough of a distinctive aesthetic style and enough of kind of a gameplay hook that it actually held up pretty well in the, you know, again, hour and change that I was playing it. Because it was in first person and it's just all kind of really stark, clean landscapes, there wasn't anything to look at and be like, oh, like, that face. I mean, and even the faces look okay.
Yeah.
So with that, it held up pretty well for a game that's now almost 12 years old.
Yeah. That's why having an art style is important.
It really is. I mean, this is the game, and I was reading, like, somebody on Kotaku, like, freaking loves this game in a way that I cannot understand. It's like, I've played this game hundreds of times. I'm like, really? Hundreds of times, buddy? I'm worried about you.
I don't think it's a particularly long game.
Still, I don't know. Playing any game hundreds of times? I don't know.
If it works for you, it works for you.
You're right. I shouldn't judge, but I was still like, this feels like hyperbole. Anyway, the point being, like, you know, he was talking about it as like this game that, despite all of these flaws, like the core mechanic is so strong.
Yeah.
And I, you know, to be fair, I can't really think of too many other first-person parkour games.
I know that Dying Light has some emphasis on parkour, but it's definitely not to the extent of Mirror's Edge.
It's something that I'd be interested to see more of in a game that gave me a little bit more of an on-ramp. Because, man, Mirror's Edge really lets you fall.
Yeah, the falling's scary.
You really, like, it's not like some games where as soon as you've jumped off the ledge, like, either you kind of disappear into the ether, or, like, as soon as you're off the ledge, it's like, game over. You really, like, it stops short of you splattering on the sidewalk, but just by about half a second.
Yeah.
And I was falling for some pretty high buildings.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I was like, oh, we're really falling here.
Yeah. That part is definitely something that leaves an impression. If you're scared of heights, maybe this isn't the game for you.
It might not be.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, if you could give me this game with a few less people shooting at me until I'm really confident in the controls, and also maybe a little bit more generous checkpoints until I'm more comfortable with the controls, because that was frustrating me too. I felt like sometimes I had figured out part of a puzzle, and then I was just getting annoyed because I was like, climb! Grab the stupid thing! So, I could have used, like, a little bit more of a generous checkpointing. But I realized that that's, me talking from 2020, and I should just get good.
Yeah.
So Mirror's Edge is probably a dead IP, given that Catalyst got pretty rough reviews.
Yeah.
Which is too bad, because I would love to see somebody take this and really lean more into the platformer of, like, if I could just, like, be parkouring on, like, really long like, these ones, I pretty much hit a checkpoint every 5 or 6 minutes. And I don't mean, like, checkpoint, I mean, like, it didn't seem like there were ever gigantic long stretches, basically.
Yeah.
But man, it'd be pretty dope. Pretty dope to get a game. I really want something kind of more level-based. I want, like, a Pro Skater, but parkour thing. That would be pretty dope.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about Mirror's Edge?
I didn't realize Rihanna Pratchett was Terry Pratchett's daughter. She's the writer.
Who knew?
I always think that's funny.
Lady Protag.
Oh yeah.
We love a lady protagonist in 2008.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
she's not white either. So
truly decades ahead of its time. It's only been a decade, but it is still decades ahead of its time. Well, okay, so that's our, like, old game cult classic. Do you want to talk now about our game that no doubt will be somewhere in that cult classic world when we talk about it in 10 years?
Yeah, let's talk about Wattam.
So Wattam came out last year in 2019 for PS4 and also from PC from Funimina. But developed by the designer of Katamari Damacy, Keita Takahashi.
Yeah.
Who seems like a weird guy.
He seems so nice.
He does seem very... I'm sorry, I don't mean that in, like, a bad way. I just mean that he has a lot more wonder for the world that I think most of us have had stamped out.
Yeah. Like, he just really wants to make playgrounds. Is what I got from reading a lot of interviews. It does feel that way,
right? Like, he would like to make better playgrounds than you could ever design in the real world.
Yeah, like, he wants to make very impractical, probably dangerous playgrounds. Which I feel like you can feel that a little bit in his games as well.
Oh, you can feel that big time in his games. To be honest, he doesn't even just want to build playgrounds. He wants to lead a workshop where you get to build a playground, tear it down, and then build it again.
Yeah. The other thing that struck me, and that I think comes out both in Katamari and in Wattam, is, like, in interviews he talks about how, like, he wants people to appreciate things more. You know, and, like, the importance of the everyday objects around you. Sort of, it feels a little bit like the, what's her name? The Spark Joy cleaning thing.
Marie Kondo?
Yeah, Marie Kondo, of, like, appreciating the things and making sure that the things you have are bringing you joy, right? Which is just, like, it's a nice attitude. And I think you see that attitude very much in both the old Katamari and now in Wattam in a different way.
So you can pick up both games this week for a total of a cool $14.98.
Wow.
Because Wattam is also currently on sale for $9.99, at least on PlayStation, which is good that I waited to buy it until a couple days before we recorded, because it was not on sale even earlier this week.
Yeah.
So we love a good Labor Day, end of summer blowout. So how shall I describe Wattam? How to summarize this game? Okay. Well, okay, so all the pitch marketing for it is that it's a game about the joys of friendship and discovery, or the ultimate goof-around simulation. All of this captures something about Wattam.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you talked about creating a playground, because that does feel... The energy of this game is very much in both the positive and negative ways of this, like watching a classroom of like relatively well-behaved kindergartners play together. Not perfectly behaved, but like they're not. Well, I guess sometimes they are eating each other.
What kindergartner is perfectly behaved, to be honest?
Right. Like, to be honest, sometimes the characters in Wattam are like biting each other. So maybe they are more kindergartners than I was going to give credit for at first. They don't scream and cry very much as kindergartners do. So in this game, something has happened to the world. Is it that everything has been rolled up in a Katamari and taken away to the sky?
Maybe.
That's my headcanon. I was like, oh, everything is gone? Some kind of mysterious force took everything from the world? Gee, what could that be? These are all the little blocks that I couldn't get to before I got so huge that I was rolling up continents.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just saying, it connects. So you wake up in this kind of dark world as the mayor. I was reading a review on GamesBeat. The reporter asks Takahashi, why do you call the one guy the mayor? And Takahashi says, because he's the mayor. I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. So you wake up as the mayor. You're a small green square guy. Sound familiar? With a hat.
Yeah.
I wonder what it is about this man that makes him feel drawn to small green polygons.
They're fun.
They are fun. They're relatable. I relate to the Principal Cosmos. I relate to the mayor, sort of.
Apparently, at least part of the reason for why a lot of the characters in Wattam are like simple shapes is because of the physics engine they were using. For a technical reason, but also that's clearly just what he likes. Just likes squares.
So you're the mayor, this green square in the dark. And gradually, by holding hands with your friends and by tipping your fun explosive hat, when you take your hat off as the mayor, it's like a party explosion. Like a party popper goes off, and everybody loves being exploded in this game. And by doing that, and solving other puzzles with your friends, you gradually repopulate the world with various, I was going to call them creatures and objects, but again, in interviews, Takahashi is really particular about referring to these objects as people.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want you to other them.
Yeah.
Which is just precious. Like, my dude, I will refer to the multiple colors of poop that I can create in this game as people. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I'll cherish the poop. So over time, there's all sorts of like kind of low-key little puzzles. Like, you get to plant an acorn, and it grows into a tree when you dance around it in a circle with your friends. And the tree can eat things and turn them into fruit. And if the fruit goes into the toilet, it turns into poop. No, if the mouth eats the fruit, it turns into poop. And then if it goes into the toilet, it turns into golden poop.
Of course.
And all sorts of little mini puzzles like that. It's fun. In a weird way.
Yeah.
It's very hard to sell.
Yeah. I can definitely see that.
So sort of, like, theoretically there is a story, and a lot of the reviews were like, the story gets really touching at the end. I think I've played about half. I'll be interested to see how that happens.
Apparently there's some sort of moral choice at the end, so...
Oh, great.
Look forward to that.
I will delete my save file, absolutely. To help other Wattam players around the world.
I don't think it's quite that one.
Can you imagine? Emil would be perfectly at home in this world, I think.
Yeah.
Shape-wise, anyway.
Yeah, definitely shape-wise.
Okay, well, that'll be interesting. Well, I am going to finish Wattam, I think, because, again, so there's... As I've described it, you kind of move from different platforms that represent the different seasons. So I've definitely gotten to 3 of them now. I think we're pretty close to moving towards the 4th. So I can't be that far from the end of the game, theoretically. But But it does feel a little bit like you're jumping into like a 5-year-old's playtime. In that, oh my god, I wish they would stay on the platforms when I want to move them to another season. Stand still. Stop running off, nose. Please, I'm going to take you more than one at a time. I couldn't get that. I was like, that was so frustrating. It wasn't
like,
that
it's
frustrating.
Like being a mayor, you know? It's like being a kindergarten teacher, you know? You gotta...
It did feel that way. It really did feel like herding cats, and there weren't even any cats. I was like, come on, just stay on the thing. And so that's another fun thing about Wattam. In the spirit of, it's Watch Dogs 3, right? You can play as anyone.
Yeah, that's a little known fact. That is where Legion got this idea.
He consulted on this. Takahashi consulted on that game. Can you imagine?
If only. I think it would make it a more interesting game, probably.
Not very his aesthetic at all. So in this game, like, you start off playing as the mayor, but by using the right analog stick, which, as many reviews rightly pointed out, I did by mistake many millions of times already as I tried to rotate the camera. When, since 2003, has a game used the triggers to be the camera rotating device? Never! And yet, here we are with Wattam, where you rotate the camera with the triggers and you select which of your many geometric friends you want to play as with the right analog stick. I understand why, so you can kind of, like, move the cursor around and pick, but man, it did screw me up a few times. More than a few times. When I was playing this, though, my boyfriend did ask me, like, oh, is this a children's game? And I was like, well, I suppose you could play it. Like, children probably could play this. They would get frustrated, though.
I think there's a co-op mode.
There is a co-op mode, so we didn't try
it,
but we might try it.
Yeah. I think it would be a fun thing, maybe, to do co-op with your kid.
I mean... So in some sense, like, there are goals for this game, but part of the goal of the game is just to play around with all the different combinations of things and stack things on top of each other and see how different things interact. People, things interact with each other. So in that sense, I can see how it would be a fun sandbox to play with a child, but if you were really wanting to, like, move through the story, there's enough thinking and having to corral the various things that it would be hard to play with someone who was also bringing even more of that 5-year-old mentality to it.
But isn't that part of the point, I guess?
Yes, Emma, of course it's part of the point.
Like, I was thinking about when they announced, like, Untitled Goose Games co-op, too. I was like, man, that would be a fun game to play with a little kid, you know? But that's, like, the same sort of structure, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff you can do, even though ostensibly there are puzzles you're supposed to be solving in each area, right? And so maybe having a child that's just constantly honking would make things harder for you. But also that's part of the spirit of that game, right? Is to just be a weird goose.
You're right, and you're absolutely right. And part of the inspiration for this game, as I've read it, is the designer, like, playing with building blocks with his son. And, like, seeing the, like, kids like destroying things that they built with blocks, right? But they don't like destroying things because they, like, want to destroy it. They like destroying it because it's joyful and exciting for it all to fall down. Which apparently is where that kind of joyful explosion mechanic kind of came from. And you're right, that I can see how that trickles in. I'm perhaps, in some ways, too much like... So Wattam gets kind of... I don't necessarily like mixed reviews in that there are some people that really love it and found it really joyful and special. And then there were some other reviews that I read that were like, this was pretty boring, wasn't that charming, kind of frustrating with the weird controls and having to keep everyone standing still. And I feel like I maybe have just a little bit too much of that second reviewer in me. I've been enjoying it so far, because it's, you know, I've been playing it pretty chill, but you do have to come to this game with that kind of chill attitude. Yeah. Not the, like, I'm gonna complete this right now attitude. Yeah. 'Cause yeah.
I mean, I do wonder partially if you'll find that in game reviewers because they need to finish this game by the deadline and the nose won't stop running off.
I mean, that thought did also cross my mind. I was like, I sympathize. This is supposed to be like a 3-hour game, but the nose won't stand still. Like in Katamari, they all have names, too. Like, not names like nose or mouth. But, like, the ring, I think the ring was named Emma.
Wow.
I was like, oh, they're Emma.
That's me.
No one was named Madelyn.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yet. You never know. If there is one named Madelyn, I'll revise my review to, like, 13 out of 10. Genuinely. I would play as nothing but that character. But that's very Katamari too, right? Like everyone in Katamari has names, and like naming everything is such a design stamp of this guy.
Yeah.
The physical editions for this game are wild too. The covers. It's just like, what?
Yeah. They're cute.
They each have, there's a couple of different editions, and they each have one of the characters, and they're like saying something. And it's like, oh, this is very cute.
No, it's something I appreciate about this and Katamari. Like, I find Katamari somewhat frustrating sometimes, whether because it makes me a little bit motion sick, I think maybe is part of it. But like, as much as they're about like destroying things, they're also about, you know, creating things. And there's just something very joyful about it in a way you don't find in a lot of games. Because there's, like, indirect violence in some ways, but it's kind of, you know, violence in a good way.
Yeah. Well, that's true in both of these games, right? This idea of taking something that is violent and turning it into a joyful expression.
Yeah.
Instead. And I forget a lot of the time that, yeah, in Katamari, you're, like, rolling up the whole earth. But I sort of forget because, you know, I've played this game and I don't start from the beginning and do the story anymore, really. That the whole driving force behind it is that the King of all Cosmos, like, drunkenly destroyed the stars.
Yeah.
And you're having to put it back together.
Yeah.
So you forget that Katamari is not really about destruction, although you are certainly this bizarro, destructive force. Not that anybody is afraid of you, really. But also it's about reconstruction. Which is very much what Wattam is about, too. The inspiration behind that, by the way, is... Here's another quote from the designer. "The current world is very messed up. That's it."
Yeah.
That's why he makes games about destruction and building things back together.
Thanks, man. Oh, actually, in this article, it does give the name for Wattam. Why it is called that. It is not because it's a mashup of the Tamil, is that how you say it? Tamil word?
I don't know.
Wattam and the Japanese word wa, which both mean circle.
I see that. I have a big feeling the end of this game is going to be all of us in a circle, dancing in a circle around something. So
Except
that makes
for
sense.
The nose.
What's with the obsession with circles, dude? But okay.
He just likes shapes, you know?
Nothing wrong with that.
He
Nothing
likes
wrong
cubes
with that.
And he likes circles.
Anyway, if you're looking for two games that are very different from the games that you are currently playing, I would recommend spending that $14.98 to pick up Mirror's Edge and Wattam. They're not going to be like games that, like, they're just not going to be like the games that you're playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that I sometimes feel, especially the games we talk on this podcast, it's not always something that happens. Sometimes we get games and I'm like, okay, haven't we talked about a third-person action-adventure game, like, enough on this show? Like, what new thing could I possibly have to say about this, like, new edition of that? But it's cool this week to have two games that we will never be able to mash together.
Yeah.
Because the mechanics are so unique.
Wattam with parkour. The nose is wall running away from you.
You know, I would take it. I would take some more. It already is kind of parkour. Like, you can kind of, like, climb on each other a lot.
Uh-huh.
So the climbing is already there.
Yeah. A story about an oppressive state that you must destroy through forming a circle with the people around you. You know?
Okay.
A story about how community togetherness and cooperation and what's that word when you're all together and you support each other?
Collaboration, unity, cohesiveness.
Sure. I guess so. That's not the word I'm looking for, but that's fine. That works. And how through togetherness you can build a better place for yourself.
That sounds like socialism.
Yes, it's a game about socialism.
Okay, but what's the mechanics of that?
Like you have to sort of do tasks to help other people, and as you gain more helpers, you have to sort of use, like, you all work together to help the next person, you know?
Okay.
Like, everybody has a particular, like, thing that they do, and you have to, like, combine those things to solve tasks for the next person.
I feel like we've lost the parkour. I feel like creating a mashup of these that doesn't incorporate some element of parkour is dishonest.
And there's some parkour in it.
Oh, good. Okay, done. Gone gold. Ship. I think a more whimsical parkour world would do it for me.
Yeah, yeah. There's a giant ball coming after you, and you must parkour your way away from it.
No, we can't turn the Katamari into a force of evil, Emma. No. No, I think if you could make like a sort of, okay, so in Mirror's Edge you have this like very sharp, clean aesthetic.
Yeah.
Which in some ways like is not so different from the aesthetic of Wattam. In that it's all simple lines. So you could definitely take the aesthetic of Mirror's Edge and just throw some whimsy at it. And have like I don't know if like, I don't think first person is the move here. Maybe it is. That'd be kind of dope. It's like, you're a tree. You're a nose. To like be able to shift first person perspectives.
It does feel a little bit like first person everything.
What do you mean?
The game Everything.
Oh, yes. Sorry, did not track that you were using capital E everything there. So maybe it's parkour, but instead of like having to like break the rules of the city, you have to, like, the buildings, like, everything is alive. Right?
Okay. Sure.
So you can like make the buildings move and the ladders move. Like, you make everything move to create the path for you. But it also has a mind of its own.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I like your idea of there are different, like, you gain more people to work with you, and that allows you different ways to traverse the territory.
Yeah.
This will be kind of fun for ages 12 and up.
Yeah. They listen. This is to clickbait boyfriend here, too. There's nothing wrong with children's games.
He did not say it in a judgmental way. He just in a genuinely questioning way.
There's nothing wrong with being an adult playing children's games or watching children's cartoons also. Maybe don't watch Blue's Clues, but you know what I mean. For ages 12 and up, it's fine. Recognize that it isn't meant to cater to you, and if you're still getting your enjoyment out of it, great. Yeah. Yeah, I like whimsical parkour world that you get to create. It's kind of interesting in that
you get to break the rules of what a city is in a very different way from normal parkour.
Yeah. Yeah.
See?
Thinking with your head.
Thinking. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Have you played Mirror's Edge or Wattam? Do you feel like there are any other games that even do anything close to what these games are trying to do? Do you have a more successful way of mashing these together than, like, whimsical parkour, where there's maybe a Katamari rolling around every once in a while? Maybe that's the reason everything can move around, because there's a Katamari that can move it.
Just every once in a while you look down on the ground and you just see the prince down there rolling his ball.
Exactly.
Just background.
Did you enjoy Wattam, but wish this dude would get back to making more Katamari games already? Come on, dude, we need this.
The man just wants to make a playground.
I just want more Katamari, but okay.
Someone just give him $1 billion to make a entirely illogical playground.
Done.
And maybe he will make Katamari for you.
Do you have $1 billion to subsidize my desire to have a funky playground and then a new Katamari game? If so, you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as Talk This Podcast. So you can follow us there for updates on what we're playing and what we're thinking about games, keeping up with what's on the website, and of course on YouTube, you can check out our video series, really Emma's video series, On Topic Corner. Topic Corner is the new series where Emma talks about like a specific, I won't call it a deep dive, but it zooms in on an aspect of a game she's been playing that she wants to discuss. And also Play This, where Emma investigates gameplay as storytelling in various games and series. All worth a watch if you haven't seen them already. But you should also check out our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, see the games that are in the hat. Emma, did you update the hat?
I did.
Bravo! And also check out our blog, where you can see long-running series, Clickbait Boyfriend, that has a new post that has posted. The last one has posted.
Call out Madelyn if she's a liar here.
Saturday, Madelyn, you did this, didn't you? Where my boyfriend is playing Kingdom Hearts, including this final installment of Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. And also Split Screen, where Emma and I are watching Coffee Prince and My Hero Academia. Plus various other blog content. I've got another anime recap coming soon. I know Emma's writing something on The Last of Us 2, so it's a good time to get into the Talk This blog. And finally, if you like the show, you should subscribe so you never miss an episode on Sundays at noon. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Casts, anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find Talk This. So next week, we're going to be talking about a gaming topic of my choice for the round 1 of this cycle of side quests. We already talked about gaming preservation, or I would definitely have talked about that in the context of Mario.
Yeah.
So I've got to get into the news cycle and see what's topical but not on fire for next week. But in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about the games that Emma is about to pick from the hat.
Yes, so our old game is going to be Mass Effect.
Nice. Massive.
Effective, you might say. Oh ho ho ho.
Workshoping my jokes already.
And our new game is going to be... Sorry, I don't pull it physically. I use this website that's having some trouble right now. Sayonara Wild Hearts, we're going to talk about.
Oh, dope.
So You've already done it. You've done your work for the week.
Amazing. I'm off the hook. No, I'll go back and play a little more, maybe. I think I have to re-download it, but I'll go back and replay
I don't think it takes up very much space, probably.
You saw my Switch, though.
I did.
You saw how much work I had to do to download Overcooked. So, folks, in 2 weeks, we'll have a wonky episode on Mass Effect and Sayonara Wild Hearts. That's going to be a mess to mash up.
It sure is.
That's going to be a real mess.
It sure is, buddy.
And next week, we'll have our side quest. And it's September now, folks. Can you believe it?
It's fall.
Now we're all fall guys.
Oh.
Bonus joke for you. Well, before I, jump into my whole autumn setup, Emma, why don't you say goodbye to the folks for us?
This week, I hope that your nose